Good evening, folks. Welcome to the January 22nd Development Review Board. Roll call, all members are present. We're going to start by opening a public hearing for Doris Rose.
So this application is number 327-11-FHR, amendment number 2. The applicant is Doris Rose. Property owner is Doris Rose. The project description is an application to repair a flood damaged and elevate structure to comply with Ludlow Ordinance Article 6. Hearing date today, January 22nd, 2024, 6 p.m. Public postings were done at the town clerk's office, town hall bulletin boards, post office, and town website on December 21st, 2023. Excuse me, would you mind standing right? In the Vermont Journal newspaper on December 21st, 2023, and abutting property owners were notified on December 29th, 2023.
Thank you, Jared. Is there somebody here to speak on behalf of the applicant or anyone else who wishes to speak on this hearing? We'll swear them in. If you want to raise your right hand, please repeat after me. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the matter now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? Okay. We will just have you step up to the mic to talk. Tell us about your project. Please state your name first. Thank you.
Melissa Rockhill on behalf of, can you hear me? Is that better?
Thank you.
Melissa Rockhill on behalf of Doris Rose. Doris couldn't be here this evening, so I'll do my best to describe the project on her behalf. So Doris was impacted by the July 10th flood. She got 1 to 3 feet of water in her mobile home. She's the double wide out front. She would she's applied for a permit to repair and elevate. She's repairing as close as possible to pre-flood condition of her home. The interior and exterior design will remain unchanged, except the front and rear decks were lost from the flood. So the front will just have stairs and the rear will have a small deck, at least big enough so she can open the door and get packages off of the porch. Her plan is to raise or elevate the home to an elevation of at least 985.6. Recently, Jerry Sheehan had Dave Rose come and recheck the numbers. There's a letter in the file on the flood elevations. And he stated that the base flood elevation is 982.5. So if she's raised at least to 985.6, that is 3.1 feet above the base flood elevation. There's 2 different contractors that were contacted to do this work. They want to increase the piers underneath her home from 24 to 32 and expand the width of them to 2 feet by 2 feet by 5 feet high. Does anyone have any questions?
Board have any questions?
I do. Melissa, is this a new home or is she replacing the existing home?
She's repairing her existing home.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we got all your letters except from floodplain manager John Brooker Campbell.
And I don't know why. He's had all of the documentation and hasn't asked for more for, I want to say, a couple months now.
But that's really the only piece of missing documentation
Yeah.
that we require is his comment letter or whoever takes his position since he is moving on. I'm not sure when that effective date is.
Okay.
Does the board have any other questions?
Comments?
I do have a question. Apparently she was given permission to repair her home pending elevation in the spring. And is that something that has taken place or progressed?
The repair has progressed. Elevation, we have to wait for the spring to do.
So if John Broker Campbell is able to get you a letter and we're able to issue a decision, that part of that decision would be that there would be a date set when that elevation would need to be completed by, so that that temporary repair wouldn't per se then become the permanent repair per se.
Right, we certainly don't want to raise it in non-conformance with what the floodplain manager would want. However, I guess since we're directed to go through the town, and Jarrett's well aware that I've spoken with John Broker Campbell a few times earlier on, but he really wants things to come through the town. I'm kind of at a loss when we've been waiting 8 weeks for a letter.
Unfortunately, I don't have any control of his letter. From my understanding, he said he was going to send out all outstanding letters before he left,
Okay.
to clear his plate, but so I don't have a better answer.
I'm just, what can I do to help move that piece forward? Or is there any authority that the town has?
But they're different in the state.
Okay.
Board have any other questions? Any other comments?
Can I be sworn in to speak?
Sure, of course. I'll swear you in. Raise your right hand, repeat it after me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give relative to the matter now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury?
No evidence. Glenn Height-Smith, 112 Route 103 South, with the exception that John Broker Campbell's now the town manager in Heartland or Hartford. Is he no longer floodplain manager? Has this board been notified that there's a different floodplain manager, or is anyone who's expected before this board and in need of letters from JBC, that being John Broker Campbell, in basically Never Land?
So whoever's going to take over his position,
Right.
will, if those letters haven't been received, I thought it was this coming week that he was going to be done. He told the town that he was going to get all the outstanding letters to us.
Okay.
And whoever takes over his position would be briefed on what letters would have to still be provided if there were outstanding letters.
So basically, no letter received, well, in an instance of all information inputted, but no letter received, there's nothing an applicant could do?
No.
So there's no by default approval of the board failing to act by a certain time, or forced closure of a public hearing? Because it's not right. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Mr. Highsmith, I feel your pain. I make a motion that we close this hearing and proceed with deliberation pending a letter from the floodplain manager, the state floodplain manager, and assuming that people will go forth in a good faith effort to improve their property under Article 6 of our town and village flood hazard regulations.
You got a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Nay? Any discussion?
Too
Okay,
late.
that's too late.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, you voted in the negative?
I did, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Did you, nay?
I did.
Okay, we're going to open the next public hearing for the Mill Condominium Owners Association.
This is application 464-18-FHR, amendment number 2. The applicant is the Mill Owners Association. The owner is the Mill Owners Association. The application is for a flood hazard review for compliance with Ludlow Flood Hazard Regulation Article 6, plus the repair of the decks on the rear of the building. Hearing date is today, January 22nd, 2024, 6 p.m. Public postings occurred at the town clerk's office, town hall bulletin boards, post office, and town website on January 5th, 2024, in the Vermont Journal newspaper on December 27th, 2023. The abutting property owners were notified on December 29th, 2023.
Thank you, Jared. Is there someone to speak on behalf of the applicant and/or anyone who wishes else to speak on behalf of this case? If so, raise your right hand and I will swear you in. Please repeat after me. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the matter now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury? I do. Okay, who's going to tell us about your project? Please state your name first at the microphone.
My name is Brian Porter. I'm on the board of directors for the mill. My title, I think, right now is treasurer. I've been on the board now for about 6 years, and I've been involved with both of these projects, and I'm prepared to speak to you.
Okay, you want to give us a little rundown of what you're trying to do?
Sure. There are two completely independent projects here to talk about, and I'm going to talk about the rear decks first. So we had a couple of horizontal beams that cracked last January, that we noticed last January, and we went to shore them up and replace them. And then in communication with the state, it became clear that we needed to get a permit for that, which we did. And the state made it clear that they wanted an engineered plan for the repair of each of these two beams. One of the beams was underneath the second floor deck, and one of the beams was underneath the third floor deck. So we worked with structural engineer Todd Hindiger. We contacted him in February. We met with him in March. He started his work. We got a little delayed. We got back with him in May. And he was out in the field several days looking at the rear deck. And his conclusion at the end of May was that we didn't have a two-beam repair problem. We had a rear deck that was at risk of falling down, the entire area, many places at risk. And so we said, okay, what do we need to do? And he said, first of all, you need to restrict access to the deck, which we did. We sent messages to all owners. We cordoned off and we put chains and tape and whatnot to try to prevent people from accessing the deck for any reason. And then Todd pulled together during the month of June a comprehensive repair plan. And we submitted that as an addendum to our state building permit with the fire marshal. And it was our intent to begin work on that in July and August. And then we got hit with the flood on July 10th. And our rear deck work was postponed. We still maintained and asked all owners to stay off the rear deck, but we didn't do any work on it until December, because the board and everybody associated with the mill was focused on getting power and getting heat and doing some of the other recovery work in the building. So we contracted with Summit Property Management to form up footers as part of the comprehensive plan that the engineer had come up with. And I believe, did we submit a copy of the engineer's plan with a permit? We did, okay.
Yes.
So you may not have had a chance to look at it. The plan is fairly extensive, but one of the things that's incorporated in the plan is that literally every footer across the back needed to be a sort of a supplemental footer needed to be poured around it. And because we were uncertain as to the material underneath the original footers and underneath the footers, he spec'd those footers to be 3 by 3 by 3 feet. So basically a yard of concrete, multiple times bigger than the original footers. But, and then the idea is that you would place like a beam behind the original beam, and vertical, and then also horizontal beams, and kind of do that all the way up the building. So we formed up the footers, the supplemental footers around the original footers in late November, and we poured concrete, I think, around December 5th. And the citation came around 12/15. I think it's dated 12/15. And there was a miscommunication that we are completely responsible for, where the Summit did not submit with the town. We had state permit, we didn't. A town permit wasn't submitted. And I believe we've applied for that permit on the 20th of December. We paid the fee on the 21st, and we're, working towards getting that permit approved so that we can complete the work. What I wanted to say, though, I spoke to the engineer again today. This is not the reconstruction of the rear decks. This is what we asked him to do was engineer sort of like an emergency repair that would buy us the time that we need to do a full-blown design and rebuild of the deck. Hire an architect, hire an engineer, compliance with flood and historic and structural and, handicap access and all of it. We all recognize that that's going to take time. So what the engineer did is he said, I'm going to design a plan that's going to give you about 1.5 to 2 years. It's not going to hold the deck up beyond the 2 years. And that's what he did. And just for also I want to note that the footers that were poured, it's in the plan. They are temporary footers. It is intended that when the deck is rebuilt, all of the footers that were poured in December will be pulled out and removed because there'll be a new plan and the beams will be in different places and the design could be completely different. And, we're going to be working on that design over the next year.
Just for a couple points of order, all permits are required before construction, and I appreciate you acknowledging that mistake, which is very good on you. Appreciate that. Second, the documentation we received was received at end of day, January 18th, and the document date for this meeting is set at January 8th. And that gives time for the board members, those packets to be sent to all the members and reviewed. And I believe it was about 125 pages you provided. So being that information was provided so late, I think it's that we, as a board, probably didn't get a chance to review all that, just as a heads up.
Sure. There's certainly a lot there.
Are you also the one that's going to speak about the flood hazard portion in regards to?
I'll do my best. We're all on the board. We're all sort of involved with the flood recovery work.
Okay. Do you want us to tell us about that portion of the project as well before we go to questions?
Sure. It was originally our understanding that permitting with the town was to be by unit for the recovery work in each unit, and it's my understanding that the owners of the basement units 102 through 107 that had applied for those permits. And then at some point, and I think the discussions with planning and zoning related to whether the damage was substantial as defined by FEMA or not. And there was a lot of discussion about, well, the building's worth, 8 million or whatever it is, 8, 9, 7 million. And the damage is significantly less than that, maybe $1 million or less. And so, anyway, I guess planning and zoning decided that what they would prefer is that the association would get one permit for all the work in the basement. And that's the permit that we applied for on the 20th, right? 20th? Yeah, the 20th. And there is some documentation. There's a flood certification that's been requested. And we've contacted a couple of surveyors to get that work done. We've had some discussions about what's to be in that certification, and it's a relative to the location of the mechanicals in the building relative to the base flood elevation, and we anticipate having that completed before the next DRB meeting. Hopefully before the requirement for the paperwork. We're trying to push the surveyor to get it done as quickly as possible.
So what was brought forth with those substantially damaged units is typically that whoever owns the unit, that would be their space. And it was then came forth in those hearings that they said that they didn't own inside the walls. And in order to go around that sort of level of FEMA, we're going to need some sort of proof, whether that be a COA document that says what the COA owns, or how that's going to be described, because you can't just arbitrarily claim who owns which.
Okay?
So the way it was presented was that the certain parts of each of those units was actually owned by the COA to include the electrical and mechanicals that serviced each of those units.
Absolutely true.
And so we need proof of that in order to suffice to that unit is not substantially damaged. And that would come from the COA.
Yep. Sure.
So we can provide that. Those are recorded documents with the town. The town has copies of those already, but we can certainly provide that to the board.
Appreciate it. It is not the board's job to chase documents. And
Sure.
and so we just, that's one thing that we will need for proof.
Sure.
Issued today based off an inspection that was carried forth by the Planning and Zoning Department was another letter of notice of violation, but you will receive in the mail, might have also received an email copy as well. In regards to some of the work that had already been conducted without a permit down there in the basement.
Okay. Okay.
You will receive that as well. I'm glad to hear that you are in the process of receiving that elevation certificate, as that will hopefully help clear up those issues. We don't have a letter from the Agency of Natural Resource that is currently held by John Broker Campbell, who is leaving. We'll also need his comment letter, both in regards to the deck and the work that is expected to be performed in the basement.
Okay.
Does the board have any questions? Anyone else wish to speak to the hearing that was sworn in? I make a motion that we recess the public hearing until the February meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Hold on, we have a
Chair.
discussion.
I have a question. Are we severing the flood hazard review and the?
No, it's all staying as one.
Okay.
It's, yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Then I will vote in the affirmative to your motion.
Okay. Next, we're going to open a new public hearing for Black River Mobile Home Court. I don't know how do you want to read that one, or?
I don't have that one with
Okay. Application number 334-11-CU, amendment number 5, 36 Main Street, and this only pertains to lot number 4 that was previously not included on another hearing. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of that, or else would like to speak? If so, raise your right hand and I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the matter now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains of penalty of perjury? Okay. You just want to step up to the mic, make sure you say your name first.
It's Jerry Sheehan.
Just wanted to tell us a little bit about lot number 4. We do have a pile of documents.
Yeah, I think I gave you quite a pile. I like to go over and above board, you know that.
Yep.
So anyway, you should have all the aspects of that new home being set up. From the Alaskan floating slab, the thickness, the construction of that slab, the number of tie downs, the weight of the home, which is 27,000 pounds, versus the amount of concrete holding it down, which is 92,000 pounds. I went over and above on the strapping, even installed more since the last board meeting. I think at that time I told you I was going to put four straps on the ends. I ended up deciding to go even more. So I have 8 vertical straps down each side, 8 diagonal straps down each side. Then what I did to further strengthen that home, I went from the left side of the frame to the right side of the slab and installed additional tie downs all the way down through there. So it has many more tie downs that it needs, and as I described before for you guys, each strap will hold down 3,600 pounds. So I've overkilled it. As far as elevating it and setting it up, I've gone beyond FEMA standards. The blocking that supports the home, I drilled 4 holes in each set of blocks, installed rebar into the slab, up through the blocks so that they're all as one, and filled them with concrete. I had the elevation checked, which I told all you board members and Jared I was going above. FEMA requires 1 foot above the 100-year flood level. I have elevated that home to 3.3 feet above the 100-year flood level. So it's 3 times what's required. I have tried to go over and above because I realize this is a tenant's home. This is my income. They lose their home, I lose my income. And I don't want to pick up any more homes behind Village Pizza. So, like I said, you've got the documentation that I provided on each home in the park of all the work that was done, including trailer number 4.
Cool, and appreciate that. The one thing that was brought forth, which we have your letters from Dave Rose with the elevation certificate. It was brought forth to my attention tonight that we're going to need is a stamped and signed site plan with the elevation on it from Dave.
A what now?
A stamped and signed site plan. So we have his hand-drawn maps, but the zoning department conveyed that they legally need a signed and stamped site plan.
Okay, I gave you a site plan before. Are you saying you need it on that, like a form like that?
Yep, so it officially needs to be stamped and signed. And maybe Jared can,
Yeah, you had an older one, but we need an updated one.
we need an updated one.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead if you've got more here.
So do you want a map of the whole park, or you want a map of that site? Because I provided you with a site map of that home that was drawn for me with the elevation. It shows that individual site. That's why I gave you that site plan with the letter. And it shows the base flood elevation, the ground elevation, the home elevation. I gave that to you, Jared.
We also have, we have the same one in Doris Rose's packet also, the whole site, the whole mobile home court. And then I have that one, and I think I supplied that one.
It's more that it's officially been stamped and signed.
Okay,
Which Dave Rose is
Okay, so
capable
just
of.
get him to put his stamp on it,
Yep.
sign it. And now, let me understand you correctly. The site plan that I gave you before, the space plan, which Dave drew up. He drew the home and listed the finished floor elevation on there in the base flood. So can he just stamp that? Because he drew that up.
It's either got to be an elevation certificate or a site plan, so it can be for that one home, but if you're going to do a site plan, it should be for the entire park at this point.
It should be.
It's probably going to be easier in your particular
Yeah.
case, being that we're only talking about number 4 unit in this hearing. If you supplied one that whole site plan that encompassed that number with that stamp, then you would be good.
Just that one home, though.
So it's going to eventually apply to all. That's the next hearing, so I don't want to get our 2 hearings mixed up.
Okay.
But so if you provided a site plan for the entire park that provided that elevation that's stamped, then that would cover number 4 as well.
Okay. All right.
Jared can give you some more details if you need a couple more specifics.
All right. I
about
wasn't
the
aware I
official
needed
stamp.
that, you know?
Well, we almost weren't either.
Yeah.
So, you know, we know Dave Rose is an honest guy, and he's gone well above and beyond, but just stating a few numbers on a piece of paper doesn't, because we're a quasi-judicial court, everything has to hold up in Superior Court or State Court.
Okay.
So that letter, just as it is, it's great, but it needs to be able to stand up legally in a higher court.
Okay. Gotcha.
Excuse me,
So, go ahead, Rose. Yep.
Jerry, Sheehan,
Yeah.
when you supplied us with that one from Ralph Michael, was that done with the whole park?
When I supplied you the one with Ralph Michael, that showed the whole park.
Did it
But that's
have all the
that's
elevations?
excuse me?
Did it have all
That's
the
an-
elevations?
That's an old one, Rose.
There's new numbers, Rose.
There's all new numbers, so
Yeah.
that's an old one, Rose. So if I understand you correctly, as long as I have a site plan with those elevation numbers on them, I'll be fine, right?
Right, okay.
I'll see if I can't get Dave to do that for me then and get that into you,
Okay,
okay?
yep.
How long do you think that might take?
Well, I got to talk to Dave.
Okay.
He's pretty busy. I'm hoping that he can do it for me fairly soon since he has all the numbers.
Yep.
It would just involve in him and putting that on paper, I guess, and stamping it and me being able to get it into Jared and Rose.
Okay. Board members have any questions in regards to this hearing?
Have all the elevations on it.
I think this is the old one.
It is. It's Ralph
Yep,
Michael.
so there's he's had the new survey done, and so it just needs to provide the new. Yep.
So I have a question.
Sure.
There were emails that were back and forth. The one that you got from John Broker Campbell. So basically what he's saying is that he's going to have a comment letter back to the town, to you, Jared, by this meeting here. Did he in fact get that? Did we get that?
So this was on today's handout.
Okay.
It is relatively a letter. I'm not sure of how deep he's going in this.
So here's this
But
letter.
it just, if you read it, it says, based on correspondence with Jerry, all work completed to all units must be in compliance.
Yeah, I was going to ask if I could read that to you.
Yep.
Because I've been in contact with John Broker Campbell.
Yep.
And I emailed him last week, and this is his reply to me. He says, "Dear Jerry, with everything submitted to Jared and then forwarded to me, I will complete my review and provide a comment letter back to the town on all open applications prior to the next DRB meeting, which was tonight. I appreciate your concern. However, from what you have provided, you are meeting the standards within the Ludlow flood hazard regulations." So what I'm asking, that in itself is a letter from him that says that I have met the Ludlow flood hazard regulations. And he had promised me that he was going to submit that to you.
And we have that letter.
Okay.
Yep. So you're
Does
covered in
that
that.
hold any weight, George?
Yes,
Okay.
both.
Okay.
He provided you that letter.
Yes.
The initial email correspondence, and he sent us an official letter, which John's reading right now.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
The official letter from him came in this afternoon at 2:45.
Yep.
So he got it under the wire.
And what does that say?
That's the official. Here, Jerry.
So I think the original one dated January 17th actually holds a lot more weight from the floodplain manager saying, from what you have provided, you are meeting the standards within the Ludlow flood hazard regulations. So at this point, all we would really need is to have something stamped and signed, like a site plan.
Yep.
for the-
Okay. All right. So basically that's what you need and then I'm good to go.
So you're good to go in that department.
Oh, God. Thank God.
You did it.
Debatably the hardest hurdle of coming to the DRB.
So
in regards-
will I have to attend another meeting or when I get that into you, will you be able to give me an okay?
Yeah, so that's the question. Do you think you could get it to us in 2 weeks?
I will try to persuade Dave to get it for me in 2 weeks. I'll try my hardest. I can't bend his arm, but he's been pretty good to me so far.
So we have two options: to reset to a date where we can still accept evidence, and that would be considered evidence.
For 2 weeks?
Well, we can do it in 2 weeks. We're trying to work with you, whatever you think. If it's going to be 2 weeks, if it's going to be 3 weeks, if it's going to be 2 days.
Okay, well,
Whatever you- whatever
let's say
thing.
2 weeks. I don't see why Dave wouldn't do it for me in 2 weeks.
So let's see what that day is. So we'll put us at the 5th.
The 5th of February?
Yep.
All right, so I'll make a motion to close this hearing on February 5th.
Oh,
So that means that,
I want to add something.
oh, okay.
Okay, last time at the meeting, I forgot to hand this in, and I'd asked you on the way out. I knew my case was closed, but you said I could hand this in to you at another time. And I forgot to give it to you at the time, George.
Yep.
But it shows the strapping system on these
Yep,
homes.
You gladly can submit evidence.
Shows the blocks. It shows the homes with the auger, stainless steel tie down, and it basically shows the lengths and the widths of homes, how many ties are required, and how far they should be spaced.
Have you given
apart.
that to Jared yet for the file?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so how about you give it to Jared and he'll make sure it gets in your file.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to recess this hearing until February 5th.
Yep. I second. Any discussion?
So what this means is that you have until February 5th to submit any evidence
Okay.
in this case. So when you speak to Dave Rose, if he gives you that information, just get it over to Jared.
Okay, sounds
That'll
good.
be the final thing. If for some reason it's delayed, you need to let us know also.
I will.
Okay, but we really.
Before that date.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll talk to Dave tomorrow.
okay.
Are you recessing
We're
or-
recessing or closing on February 5th.
We're going to,
It's closing February 5th.
We'll be
That's correct.
closing.
Recess.
Recess.
Let's change that wording, please.
yep. Any other discussion?
No.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I'm next
Stand
again.
right-
Am I next again, or?
Go right back to that. Just kidding, just kidding.
There you go.
Just back to this.
Okay. Next, we're going to open a recess public hearing for Black River Mobile Home Court for all lots excluding Lot 4. Is there someone who here to speak tonight on behalf of this? If you were previously sworn in, you're still sworn in. Is there anyone else that wishes to talk to this hearing? Okay, you want to stand up to the mic and tell us an update on this project?
Well, basically, I think we went over all that before, right?
Two separate hearings. You don't need to talk about, basically, we have a John Broker letter for you.
Yes.
The same applies as to the previous hearing, that we need that site plan that's stamped.
Right.
From Dave Rose.
Okay.
Has there been any changes to the in-depth discussion that we had last meeting?
No, other than handing you that strapping system,
So,
that's it.
so in regards, do you think 2 weeks would be an acceptable time for Dave Rose to give you for that document that would also cover this case?
I do.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add in pertaining to this case?
Nope, I think that's it, George.
I make a motion that we close this hearing on February 5th.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much. Appreciate your help.
Goes firing through.
Next, we're going to open a recess public hearing for South Face Village at Okemo Development. Is there someone here who wishes to speak to this hearing? Or anyone who was not previously sworn in that needs to be sworn in? I think we're going to be up on Zoom.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
may I-
please.
Yep.
Andrew Becker.
Oh, just hold on one second.
I'm sorry. I was not at last month's meeting, but I have read the minutes and the package that came with this, and I feel I am sufficiently informed to make a decision on these, on the recessed hearings from here on forth.
Thank you, Alan. Sorry, go ahead from Zoom. Were both of you previously sworn in?
We were, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We did receive the letters that we had requested from the services and those conditions that they set, which were, other than having a 911 address sign visible, there's no conditions. Is there anything else you guys would like to add to that for this hearing?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
No, you mentioned about the 911 thing.
I make a motion that we close the hearing for South Face Village.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have a good evening. Courtesies.
Next, we're going to open a recessed public hearing for Shaw's Supermarket. Is there someone who is here to speak on behalf of the applicant or wishes to speak to this case, and if they were not sworn in, that needs to be sworn in? I believe you gentlemen, were you both sworn in last time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You want to tell us a little bit of an update on your project?
So my name is Bill Faraday with Vertec Construction. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to bring up a couple things before Nicholas, the architect, gets into where we are with the flood mitigation and the design. We met last time. We explained that Shaw's is looking to expand into the Rite Aid space as well as renovate the supermarket to get that open back up as soon as possible. Our current plan right now, I think we told everybody last time, was around February 12th for the interior design of the supermarket and the Rite Aid space. The flood mitigation is going to take us a little bit longer. And I had been talking with Jared, and I wanted to ask the board if maybe we could split this approval process with the permit into maybe 2 phases if possible, with the first phase being the interior renovations and the expansion into Rite Aid, while the architects and the engineers continue with the flood mitigation design, which is still going to take us a few weeks to finalize the complete design and approval with everybody involved. We're looking to try to see if we get started as soon as possible. Obviously, right now, the construction start date that we tentatively had was March 4th or sooner if possible. And we're hoping to open back up to the community and the public here before July 4th. And we're looking for a grand reopening somewhere around June 28th. So in order to achieve that, we're hoping that we could split this, like I said, into like a phase 1 being the renovation portion, and then a phase 2 being the flood mitigation, which Nick can update everyone on where we are with the progress and the design on that in a few minutes. And then I talked to Jared also about the DUG and seeing if we could pull a separate permit. And the DUG is their drive up and go operation with their operationally inside the Rite Aid space currently. And what we wanted to do is to build out the walls in that space to kind of close them off from the construction before we actually start. So I'd asked Jared if we could pull a separate permit just for that. So I know it's kind of multiple questions, but we're looking to see if we get permission to maybe pull a separate permit for the DUG, and then again to split the phase 1 and phase 2 with the permit. That would allow us to get started to turn this back over and open up sooner. The longer this takes, the longer and later it's going to be before we open up the market. So, and then the other question I had, which Jared and I have been talking, did you receive all the letters, Jared? I know I had talked to each department and everyone told me that they were all approved. At the last meeting, I think you only had 1.
I think we have 2 now.
2. Do you know who we're missing?
I think we're missing ambulance letter.
Yeah, and I think, if I remember correctly, I think she was out sick at that time, but I can follow up tomorrow on that letter as well. Okay. So before I turn it over to Nick to describe where we are with the design phase, is there anything that we can do to try to apply for a permit for that DUG space? And does it seem like it's acceptable to do the approach with the phase 1 and 2 on the construction to at least get started?
So, in regards to your drive up and go space, is this going to be a permanent change as part of the overall plan, or is this a temporary that you're wishing to do?
No, so we have them in there right now, currently set up as a temporary, but they're in the spot that they're going to permanently go into. In their permanent spot, obviously it has a floor, it has walls. It's kind of closed off with a door opening into the supermarket and a door to exit and enter from the front. So by putting them and building this out now, it'll allow us to keep them in their own area while we're under construction in the building too. Because right now they're in just one big wide open space in the Rite Aid space. And obviously once we get in there, it's going to be an active construction site, which would make sense to have them partitioned off and separated from us.
So with that in mind, that you're trying to do one permanent change, that per se, from the way you've described, is that you would like to do this little section first and then address the bigger project later, and have this portion that you want to complete now be brought up to its current of what would be the final project before the rest.
Correct, right.
Okay.
And this would be like within the next couple weeks, I mean, because construction for the first phase of the overall, we were thinking beginning of March.
Okay. And
This would
when
allow
do you-
us to have that built out prior to that.
Okay.
George, I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Rose. I was going to go to you anyways.
I was thinking that if they're going to work in the interior and they have permission from the fire marshal, it would only help Ludlow in the sense of getting the store open sooner. And we can still proceed as the architect continues to get the floodproofing done for the outside and get that approved sooner with our new Agency of Natural Resources flood manager when that happens. But we don't know when that's going to happen and who that person is. But right now, we need to continue working on the store, and the interior is what is important to get that motor in right now too.
Okay. Do you need them on the paperwork side to fill out anything separate for what they're proposing?
No, because they've already started working on it, but they've already started working on all of that. We have some floor plans I think they've submitted tonight, but I think that with the fire marshal's approval, I think that it would be an okay start for them.
What's the board think?
I think this is going to be done in good faith, and I think it should be allowed.
What do you guys think?
Go along with that.
I concur.
As long as the fire marshal, like they said, weighs in that's safe during construction.
So we'll take it on good faith for that, that would be a good plan. We would like to see the documentation that regards to the entire project when that's available. And if the section that you're going to make that's applicable to the drive up and go is available first, just like a zoomed in view, because the image that we were given is pretty hard to read.
Okay. When we turn it over to Nick, I'm not sure if Nick has a plan that he could pull up, if you want to see it on the screen here tonight, or if you just want that sent over to Jared and Rosemary tomorrow.
I can zoom in and print the larger section of this also.
How about, if both is possible, if you can put it up on the screen, that'd be great, but also send a copy over for your file to Jared and Rose.
Sure. And whatever we do, we will talk to Ben, the fire chief. We did get his permission. We had a permit to do the temporary as it is right now, so we could just let him know that we were going to continue with just building the walls around it.
Yep, so what we would need would be to see that an updated permit from him with the plan. And as long as he's okay with whatever you've proposed, and provide that same documentation to us if it's different than what you've provided so far, we'll go forth with that in good faith.
Would that be the same for the rest of the renovation or just for the Doug?
The rest of the renovation inside has to be approved by Ben.
So as long as, in a couple of weeks when we have the final drawings, we submit everything to Jared and to Ben, and if Ben is okay with it, we can at least get started on the interior?
Yep.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We certainly have to have Ben's approval, and then
Absolutely.
And then we'll take the drawings and put them in our, we'll also look at them and make sure that everything is, fire safe and everything is okay. And we want to make sure that the Doug is safe for sure.
Okay, we appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to Nick so he can show you the progress that we've made with the current flood mitigation design and a couple options that we have.
Hi, I'm Nicholas. I'm with Scott Griffin Architects. Am I able to share my screen? I sent over a small packet of slides that I'd like to bring up on the screen if I can.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, there we go. You're good.
Okay, can you see the front of the building there?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So, I just wanted to put together this quick packet to show you, to describe both our design intent, our goals, and what we've been working on to date. And then at the end, kind of what our final goal is going to be, so that you know what we're working towards and what you can expect as a package from us that shows what the extent of this floodproofing is going to be for this building. We've assembled a design team to assist with this, both the floodproofing work as well as the building reconstruction work. We've got a civil engineer on board, VHB. We've got our mechanical, plumbing, electrical, and fire protection engineers, EER. We have our structural engineer, Souza True and Partners, Vertec, Billy, he's our general contractor, and myself, Nicholas, with Scott Griffin Architects. So we've got a complete team of people working on this. If at any point you have any questions while I'm going through this, please interrupt and go ahead and ask. We've been surveying, and we continue to survey the existing conditions to make sure we understand all the conditions present so that we can develop the most appropriate floodproofing interventions. The goal is to provide FEMA certified dry floodproofing for the entire building. Our preliminary survey work and research has shown that the base flood elevation for the site is currently equal to the finished floor elevation, which is at 1,003 feet. Our goal is to design the floodproofing to be 4 feet above that finished floor elevation, or 4 feet above that base flood elevation to an elevation of 107, and that's based on the historical data of the fact that there was floodwaters in the building upwards of 3 feet. So we don't want to under design it, knowing what's possible on this site. One of our goals is for the floodproofing methods to be passive whenever possible, meaning they don't require any human intervention to activate. The methods that do require human intervention, the goal is for them to require very limited specialized knowledge to be able to implement, as well as very short activation times that don't require a lot of advance notice. For this site, since it's used by the general public, by people of all types, we of course are going to maintain ADA accessibility to all tenants. And we're working, this will all be illustrated in detailed drawings that show exactly what we're doing at all the different areas. So just to kind of break down the site, break down the building, it's got a couple different construction types that we're working on the floodproofing interventions for. Around the back and sides of the building, shown by that orange line, is concrete block, full height. So the goal for that portion of the building is to reinforce that wall structurally so that it can withstand the forces of floodwaters, and then to coat it with a coating or a paint that's flood resistant, that will resist the penetration of the floodwaters up against it. And that's the majority of the building. Now there are conditions around the back and sides that we're pinpointing and looking at very closely as vulnerable areas, and areas that we need to do interventions for to make sure that all those areas are also floodproofed. They include the egress doors and the rear access doors to the tenants, There's an exterior grocery freezer that we're detailing how to protect. There's an electrical panel that's on the outside of the building, as well as the tenant gas and electric meters that if they're not above the flood, that 4 feet above the flood elevation, we'll be looking at raising or protecting those. The loading dock doors are big point of entries for flood waters that we're going to be protecting. We're going to put together a plan for the trash compactor container, which likely needs to be moved to a higher elevation in the event of a potential flood. And any drain lines that are leaving the building, we're surveying those, we're finding those, and we're planning on installing backflow preventers at those locations so that floodwaters can't surge into the building through the drain lines that exit the building. Now, the front of the building is a different story. It's got a much different construction type, and we're looking at it in a few different ways. We have multiple options on the table that we're looking at right now, and I'm just going to go over a couple of those quickly. The front of this building is, as shown by the blue line, is made up with brick veneer on partially, some of it is wood framing and some of it is metal stud framing, but it all has this wood veneer, this brick veneer. Across the front, again, we're maintaining accessibility to it. We're looking at the possibility of strengthening that wall, reinforcing it like the CMU wall to make it the flood barrier. Another complication is there's several windows across the front and a lot of doors across the front that we're looking at. One other portion of the building that has a slightly different construction is the front portion directly in front of the Shaw's main space, which it's the high visibility storefront at the front facade. The main entrance to the store is there. We need to provide access to that. We're also looking at modifying that wall to be a flood barrier, while still maintaining maximum daylight and view into the store to make it still, a familiar place, what people are used to. We don't just want to modify it in such a way that it becomes less of a positive experience for the shoppers and the people using it. So those are the different design challenges that we're looking at around the building. Now, across the front where we have this brick veneer, one possibility, like I mentioned, is to attempt to reinforce it similar to the concrete block walls so that the wall itself acts as a flood barrier. Doing this involves anchoring the wall to the foundation. All the doors and the windows would need modification or separate deployable protection. The brick itself would need to be repaired and treated to resist floodwaters. This will require demolition and rebuilding of a lot of the interior spaces in all the tenants across the front in order to do this kind of modification. It's looking like it's pretty labor intensive and at least multiple points of failure. If something isn't done properly or there's a section that isn't completely remediated, then that's a point of failure that we may not know about until a flood event happens.
It's too late.
So one more method of flood-proofing this type of wall construction that we're looking at is providing a flood barrier in front of the existing wall construction. This limits the work required to the existing wall construction and also within the tenant spaces. The doors will still need deployable protection, something that can be installed to barricade them up. The windows will need to be modified or have deployable protection on them. We're leaning towards the two pictures of the windows below where it shows the height of the window, of the existing windows. The sill of them is below the design flood, or below the flood barrier protection. So it will require replacing these windows with shorter ones so that they're fully outside of the design flood area, so that it's passive protection. No one has to come in and install shutters or barriers in front of the windows. They're just naturally protected by their elevation off the floor. It likely will be a concrete wall that gets cast in front of the existing wall so that it's monolithic. It's one big piece that has very few points of failure within it. And it has the ability to be clad with something, a decorative architectural finish so that it's just not a bare concrete wall. We want to maintain the look and feel of the store environment, the shopping environment. And so we're looking at possibilities to clad it in such a way that it matches the overall design of the building. One last concept that we're looking at is the idea of encapsulating the front facade. And what I mean by that, and it's illustrated by this green barricade, it would be a flood barrier that's built at the edge of the sidewalk, at the front edge of the sidewalk, the front edge of that overhang, that would encapsulate the front of the building. Doing this would require no modifications to the existing building, which would mean no disruptions to the tenants. We wouldn't have to replace any windows. The doors would be naturally protected because they'd be within this protective barrier that's outside of the face of the building. It would also limit the number of openings to as few as possible so that we would still maintain accessibility to the tenants, but we would limit them so that there's fewer points of failure, fewer points where we have to have some deployable barriers, whether they slide across or tilt up or swing over. There would be fewer of those, so there would be fewer places to fail. Again, this would be something that could be clad to have an architectural finish. There are other things that might need to happen as a result of doing this type of thing, this type of intervention, but it's one that we're looking at. And that is it for the examples of what we're looking at and designing towards. Between now and the next meeting, we will be working towards finalizing these decisions on the exact measures we're making to do the floodproofing. They'll be detailed and they'll be put together into drawings done by myself and the engineer. We're evaluating all these different interventions based on their how effective they are, whether they're passive or if they require human intervention, how practical they are, and how well they'll do their job with as little impact to the daily user as possible. And again, for the next meeting, we will be preparing. We're working on a comprehensive plan that will detail out and illustrate all the interventions all around the building, so that we're sure and you're sure that we have a great plan in place to make sure that we don't have a loss like this again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Does the board have any questions?
Not right now.
Okay. I make a motion that we recess the Shaw's hearing to the February meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to open a recess public hearing for Divided Sky Foundation. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of the applicant or that wishes to speak to this hearing that was not previously sworn in?
Yes, I am.
Were you previously sworn in last time?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I'll swear you in. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give relative to the matter now under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your project.
What's his name?
And please state your name for us.
Sure. My name is Patrick Smart. I'm with MSK Engineers. This project is proposing to upgrade the fire protection reservoir for an existing building at 262 Fox Lane, Ludlow, Vermont. The current reservoir that provides water to the sprinkler fire protection system is a swimming pool. And it's an old swimming pool. It was in poor shape, and the permit application is proposing to replace the pool with a buried fiberglass storage tank to provide the required volume for fire suppression.
So last time when we left off, just to confirm with Jared that we did receive some letters from the service, the three locals.
I have two on me. I don't have
Okay,
any.
can you just pass those along so we can all see those? I don't have those in my packet. Do you have them?
I got Billings and
They're on the
Peter
pink.
Flynn, but I don't have one from.
So we're just looking. So we're still going to need one from the ambulance, but a little bit more important is we don't have a state fire marshal letter yet in regards to that project with their comments.
We've received a permit from the Division of Fire Safety for this very project. I will make sure that the DRB receives a copy.
Okay, appreciate that. And also that we had asked that your maps and legends be provided that were actually readable. The copies that we had been sent were so minute you couldn't read them with a magnifying glass.
Understood. I apologize, and I will ensure that we provide updated copies of our maps.
Does the board have any other questions? No. You guys have any questions? Do you have anything else you want to add? I believe those are the only couple things that we just need to have in hand.
I don't have any other questions. I'm happy to answer any the board may have, but I appreciate your time.
We don't have any more questions at this time, so if you can get us that the state fire letter that you had received, we need an ambulance letter, and get us some copies that are a little bit more legible on the maps and legends. We would appreciate that. And I make a motion that we recess Divided Sky Foundation until February.
I'll second.
Can I just ask a quick question? To my knowledge, we've requested the municipal service providers provide letters supporting the project. But aside from asking the ambulance department to provide a letter for a proposed project that they doesn't have any bearing on any of the services they provide or anything they do, is there anything else I can do aside from asking again to get another copy of a letter?
No, we can just, we'll have you just reach out again. I know at one point last month that she was sick, so that might have just fallen through the cracks. It's just a check in the box for us if through all the services, if they have any input. But the bigger one for us is going to be having that state fire inspection permit that you received and the maps that are a little bit more readable. Any other discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to open a recessed public hearing for Del Tufo Real Estate 80 Brew. Anyone who's here to speak on behalf of the applicant or wishes to speak on this hearing tonight that was not previously sworn in that needs to be sworn in. Okay. Want us to tell us a little update about your project?
Sure. So I don't think you guys need anything else from us. I think we got all our ducks in a row. Seems like you're not going to be able to get the permit just held up at the mill. Seems like we're woven together.
So the only thing that's left in your guys is your elevation certificate that shows where, for your utilities and stuff.
For our specific unit?
Yeah, and so that will be, that can, it sounded like based off the presentation in another hearing that was going to be part of their plan to provide that for you guys.
Yeah, and again, we do have a surveyor coming out.
Okay, so that is something that's required by all of the flood hazard review. But we did receive your additional estimates, which was required, so appreciate that. Do you have any other questions that we can answer for you?
Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone got, I know I sent it in a little late, the copies of the report, the sound report. Just want to make sure everyone had a chance to read that and confirm that we're not in violation of 550.
Yep, we did receive that. I believe we talked about that last time as well.
Correct. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. We're not in violation of that.
Yep. Does the board have any other questions? You guys have any questions?
Rose has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rose.
Maybe she's-
Didn't have her hand up. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, were you previously sworn in? Okay, go ahead. We'll take some comments.
Rich Kowalski, 145 Main Street, Unit 206. So just wanted to give you a little update. We've been in touch with the folks at Ado Brew in reference to coming up with a plan for sound mitigation. Recently here, we got together, laid out I guess kind of a hybrid plan that was originally laid out by the sound engineers that were hired by the Mill Board Association. We have what we feel is a kind of comprehensive type solution to manage the sound at the mill, and kind of reached a little bit of a deadlock today in reference to I guess just execution of the plan. We have most folks on board in reference to the proposal. I can submit that to you guys if you'd like to take a look at it. But had a kind of distribution of costs that was happy to everyone. And the final piece that we're left on a hang up on was just it was really installing ceiling tiles or not to make sure that the sound gets managed. The sound that's generated down at the bar doesn't penetrate to us above. And so we just kind of came onto a deadlock with Ado Brew in reference to being able to execute that final piece of the plan. And so again, just asking the board to kind of consider, section 550.1 part 2, or sorry, section 2 part B, and just helping us manage these, these loud repetitive sounds that are produced on site. Like I said, we've spent a lot of time and engineering dollars that the Mill Association has spent in reference to the engineer's recommendation, and really just looking to implement some version of that that helps us achieve this. So we're asking again just to take a look at that piece for us and help that be part of the plan, and hopefully make that a contingency of the of the approval. Bob Malecki, as part of the board, had done a lot of research in reference to this. He's an engineer himself, and was able to locate all the necessary supplies, layup contractors. Some of the abutting tenants have agreed to, even house some of these contractors to get this in place, and could do so before the bar opens. So we would ask that you take some consideration and make this as part of the conditions of opening the facility, is to have this soundproofing installed.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
I want more comments.
Okay. I make a motion that we. Sorry. Thought you were together. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. My name is Wendy Wachtel. My husband and I own Unit 204, right above the mill. So, as a group, the owners that are abutting the Ado Brew are respectfully asking the DRB to make sound mitigation requirements part of the permit. We have spent countless hours researching and money spent on coming up with a very good solution that will help. It is not that the STR is not being met. It's actually that Section 550.1B is the big issue, loud repetitive sounds on site, and that falls under 550.2, discretionary, normally unacceptable. That's what we're dealing with here. We want to be good neighbors, but we need them to be good neighbors back. And what the owners of Budding 80 Brew have willingly come up with, we're willing to put up over $35,000 of our own money towards paying for this solution for them. So the pocket cost for them is not great, it's 1/6. The HOA, all of the owners are paying cash. We're willing to house the people, we're willing to use discounts and do labor and do everything that we can to make this work within the time frame that they're closed so they can open. We'd like them to open. We're business owners as well, but we need to be able to protect our own business. And it clearly states loud repetitive sound on site, discretionary, normally unacceptable. So it's not the STR level that's the issue, it's that the music so loud through those floors is not, it doesn't give us an environment where we can have customers that are not complaining. And it ruins our business. So if we're willing to pay $35,000 out of pocket personally, and it only costs them about $7,000, I feel like it's something that should be considered very seriously. That's basically it. I mean, we'd like to all work together, and we'd like to have this done before their open date, so we're not causing any more issue for them not being open. But according to the amended and adopted zoning, flood, and hazard regulations, it's not fully in compliance, so that's what we're asking you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I'd like to speak on that.
George?
So-
Yeah, of course. Go ahead, Rose. We'll just have listen to Rose first.
The gentleman that spoke prior, did he give you documents?
He said he would.
Okay, because you want to make sure you get those probably right now, because you can give those to Jared so he can put them right on him that he received them tonight. Because that is evidence for tonight's meeting.
Yep.
And I just wanted to, make sure to just, let everybody be aware that, there's been no permit issued. So there's no opening date, because they have to receive a permit from the town first.
Thank you, Rose.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, we are, like they said, we were working together. We did have a little bit of a deadlock conversation today as we disagreed on a couple of the final touches of this, but we also met this Saturday. And at the end of the conversation Saturday, we all kind of walked away happy because we thought we had agreed, verbally, it seemed like everybody was on board with the solution of strapping the material to the existing ceiling. And that's option 2.1 in the packet I gave you. Actually a little bit better. We're adding an extra inch of insulation to it. And that's going to be about a 45 SDC rating, which rule of thumb is generally about 1 decibel per SDC. During the evaluation in the report, it stated that it got up to just over 60 a few times in the unit, and generally stayed about 35 to 55, something like that, during operating hours in the most abutting unit. It's about 50 decibels in here right now. And then with the 45 SDC added to that, it's going to reduce it down to about 20 up in that unit, which is very, very quiet. And that's something that we were on board with. Materials are ready to go. We actually scheduled contractors. We had to call them and tell them not to come. They're going to come next Monday. Have this all done in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Yep.
What we agreed on was that we would do phase 1 at this time. And we would look and finish phase 2 afterwards because the cost was so prohibitive. It was a $90,000 fix. And as the owners, the rest of us picking up that bill, that's a lot. That's a lot for us to put $7,000 a piece into it, much less another $20,000 a piece. So what we agreed to was to work on that. In the meantime, one of the board members, who's also an engineer, who's put together that packet right there, and he can speak to the difference between the first solution that was found, that was a $90,000 solution. What we had gotten to was stage 1 was $40,000. He's done additional research, and now we're up to being able to do the entire project for $42,000. That way we get a full solution, because that half solution was never meant from any of the owners to be the final solution. We need the full solution. And we can do more sound studies if we need to prove that the STR is not as low as they're saying, but it would not have given us, for the money, what we needed to be able to conduct business. Additionally, some of the materials in the first solution were not necessary for the less expensive second solution, and we were wasting an additional $10,000 that actually would have impeded the sound mitigation, and it would not have helped. And I can't really speak to the specifics, but Bob can if you'd like. But that's why we then were all on board for a full solution for $42,000 rather than a full solution for $90,000. And so we presented it today, and it was not acceptable to them. We are in the impasse on that, but we'd like to submit more details on the actual design, and please ask questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Rose has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rose.
Hi. So I just want to remind the Condo Owners Association, Ado Brew, and just Mr. Alden, just in case, that none of those have a permit from the village to do any type of work in those units, or in the condominium association has not a permit to do any type of work. So if any work is being done, it's being done in a violation, and it is going to be noticed by violation. So if there's work being done down there, it's a violation against the village and against the flood hazard regulations. Until you get your permits, you're not to do work in those units.
I thought we were given permission to within good faith to do work before the permits were received.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I speak? Sorry.
Were you sworn in for this hearing? You were?
I was,
Okay,
yes.
sorry, I just didn't hear you.
Thank you, Rose. Maybe you can just clarify, because what I'm hearing is different than what we were told from your office. From the beginning, it seems that the general sentiment was that folks could start work as long as they were working towards the flood hazard review in the permit. But what I'm hearing now is that you're saying that folks are in violation if they've done any work. So if you could clarify, that would be helpful.
Yep. It's been 6 months, 7 months since July. We've repeatedly asked for documentation to have the structures up and running, and we've been getting pushback from you guys. We've been getting documentation that may or may not be correct. We've asked you several times for condominium owners association documentation showing us that you are in charge, you are taking care of electrical, mechanical, and we see that you keep doing work that without giving us the documentation that we're asking for. And we've been told by the Agency of Natural Resources floodplain manager that at this point it's way past the deadline. That was in the very beginning after the flood, and now it's way too far off. He said that now permits should be had, documents should be had, and people should have their ducks in a row. And there's not very many of you still dragging along and not giving us your documentation. So now violations are being sent out to people that are not giving us their documentation and doing their work.
Thank you very much, Rose. Board have any other comments?
So we're not allowed to do any work down there?
At this point, no.
So why were we able to do work before and up until this point?
I don't know who that is.
We were given express permission from the board here.
It was, the board never gave permission. That was granted by the state,
You were
temporary
given permission by the fire
emergency
marshal.
repairs.
No, we were given, I'm pretty sure we were given permission from the board here.
No.
Saying that within good faith, as long as you're.
And what Rose is saying is that by withholding documentation,
Right.
you're operating outside of good faith.
Oh, okay, I see.
And so the state led forth with that, and that they said that we understand this is a crisis, but at this point, it's unacceptable to say that we are still in crisis.
Right, okay, understood.
And so the required documentation that's been requested, that has not been given, has led down this road.
Yep, okay,
Is that-
understood.
is
Yeah,
that
thank
understood?
you for the clarification.
Go ahead, Rose.
The fire marshal put a note on their door that said that no one was allowed in that basement area for quite a while, so that they weren't even allowed to work downstairs at all. The fire marshal's
Rose.
the only one that's given them permission to work downstairs.
Thanks, Rose. Board have any other input? I make a motion that we recess this hearing until February.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much. Next, we're going to open a recess public hearing for Eric Alden. Anyone who is here to speak on to this hearing that needs to be sworn in. You were sworn in last time. Anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay. Tell us an update on your project.
Yeah, so based on everything we said tonight, the initial permit was pulled under the assumption that the unit owners would be required to pull the permits. That's since changed, so I don't know what the procedure is here, if you close it, but we probably would rescind this permit because it's not necessary any longer, now that we've moved the responsibility to the association for the damage repairs.
So they're going to cover all of the damage repairs?
Yes, I, as an owner, will have zero expense in my units.
Okay. In regards to the documentation that you've provided, really the only things that were missing was the letter from the floodplain manager, JBC, also your elevation certificate. Being that you've provided this information and what was provided by a different applicant on there in regards to the COA, and any fourth information that they provide would make it that your application would just be finished off. So I don't think it's necessary to be closed or rescinded, as you said, but waiting for that information.
Okay, yeah, just whatever the procedure is, that's fine with me. Thank you for your time.
Any board have any inputs they want to ask? Thank you. I make a motion that we recess hearing for Eric Alden until February.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
So I think we mention that.
Oh, it's missing that information.
Or just put it into the record, this is gonna stay till.
Oh, yeah, they did send a letter that
Mhm.
asked for that.
Yeah.
Next, we're going to open a recessed public hearing for 31 Route 103. We did receive a letter that they wish to be recessed until spring, early summer. I will make a motion that we recess this hearing until June.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I'm sorry, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
sorry. Go ahead.
Should we recess it until May, perhaps?
Sure.
And if we need to go to June, in case they get their ducks in a row and come earlier?
I'm okay with that. I will revise my motion that we will recess until May.
Thank you.
I'll second the new motion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming. So we are going to review not going to review the minutes tonight based off of when the packets were given out. We will push, so we will have November, December, and January minutes for next month. Under other business, included at your seat was just a clarification on a question that was brought forth in regards to new storage tanks of heating oil, just for some information on your guys' side. Board have any other business?
Jared, is there any way that our packets can be sent to us via email? Is that a possibility?
I apologize, I was sick last week.
No, it's not really about that. It's just like, this is 2 months right here, so it's really a lot of paper that we have, when if we can put it onto an email, it would be more streamlined possibly.
Rather have it in email?
I just think that it would save on, say again?
We would love that.
I would, yeah, that would be nice.
I'd rather have paper.
Yeah, I think that's convey whatever your personal preference is, and we can make that
Okay,
happen.
can do that, sure. I'd love to cut back on paper use.
I don't always get the emails. It might be my email thing. Sometimes it goes to spam.
Okay.
I'll find out later, but
And
thank you.
I know-
love the agendas.
I know the office had some sickness in this last week, but there's been a discussion about making sure that all the documentation is in the future that is in hand before they make it onto the agenda.
Sure.
Any other discussion under other business? I make a motion that we are done with these.
I second that motion.